Welcome to Inside Aesthetics, the world's leading podcast for injectors and cosmetic businesses. I'm Dr. Jake Sloan, an aesthetic doctor based in Sydney, and I'm joined by my co-host and good friend David Segal, an entrepreneur and an aesthetic business mentor. Each episode of IA showcases unfiltered conversations with guests from around the world. In a sometimes disjointed industry, IA aims to help educate and connect our global community to raise the bar for both our businesses and our patients.
To further support and educate our listeners, we offer a range of additional resources under our IA Patreon subscription service. This caters for injectors and business owners of all levels and includes interactive live Zoom sessions, webinars, hints and tip videos, private chat groups, and exciting future content to come. To subscribe to IA Patreon, head to www.insideaesthetics.com/Patreon or click the link in our podcast description. You should seek medical advice before undergoing any treatment or procedure, and these podcasts do not replace a professional and bespoke consultation.
Hey guys, quick announcement before we jump into today's episode. One of the topics that came up, Jake, during many of the conversations we had with people at the event and some of the topics that were covered on stage was ultrasound. We've been talking about it for a while now on the podcast, and we've had Leonie Schelke on here before, and we've actually partnered with her to provide our patrons or our listeners with a special offer. So tell us all about it.
Yes. So Leonie was on episode 175. If you haven't listened to that one, that's a good one to start with. But our offer is partnering with her company called Cutaneous Facial Ultrasound. They are world renowned as the leaders in, I guess, ultrasound.
Ultrasound goats.
The goats, exactly. So they actually do online courses as well as, in-person courses all around the world. And I was lucky enough to host their first Sydney one or Australian one. But the offer for you guys is 10% off any of their online courses. So if you go to cutaneous.nl, because they're based in the Netherlands, or of course the information is in the podcast description below, check out all their courses. And if you're one of these injectors, like many of the people we spoke to at A23, who's like, I don't know how to start all of this, and I don't know where to go, and do I buy a device? First thing to do is to do the online course to get your eye in, to understand the physics, and just to really, I guess, suss out where it's going to fit into your practice. Then maybe do a hands-on course, either with Cutaneous or someone else. And then that's the time to maybe to commit to buying a device.
Yeah.
That's how I did it. It's working really well. I'm certainly no expert, but it's going really good. Lots of interesting cases that I've already seen and helped people.
Yeah.
So enjoy. All the information for your discount is down below. Just follow the instructions and enjoy this week's podcast.
Yeah. And happy ultrasounding.
See you guys.
Fresh off the back of A23, we made it.
I'm exhausted. It was dead. What is A23?
A23 stands for Aesthetics 23.
Yeah.
It is, I guess, one of the larger cosmetic conferences that we have on an annual basis here in Australia. So it's a concept or the brainchild of Dr. Steven Liew, who's a renowned plastic surgeon who still does surgery, but has a special keen interest in injectables, and that's a large part of his practice, which is located in Sydney, in Darlinghurst, called Shape Medispa, and he's been on
Shape Clinic.
Shape Clinic, sorry, he's been on the podcast a couple of times. We've had other people from his team on here, so this is his concept. But I mean, you're an avid conference goer person. I mean, what do you think is sort of the point of difference, or how would you sort of rate A23 compared to what else is available here in Australia on an annual basis?
So I believe, I don't want to speak for Stephen, maybe we'll get him on one day to talk about the concepts, but I believe, he was trying to do something different in a way to your average large-scale conference. So it started in 2019. I think that was the first one we went to. And, just visually, the feel, the fun, but also the focus was much more relevant for, your everyday injecting, where there's a lot of I guess more relevant chat about off-label rather than sticking to on-label, really trying to involve all of the brands, as well as showcasing, of course, other things like skin and laser and so on. So bringing the best of the best together, which you would have thought most conferences already do. Yep. But sometimes it doesn't feel that way. It always feels a little bit like a smorgasbord. Yeah. Whereas this feels more focused and relevant. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So, anyway, if you've never been, go next year, A24. Yep. But, yeah, so, I mean, you came and joined us for... Oh, in fact, why are we even doing this podcast? Why are we talking about this?
Well, we were privileged enough to have been asked or invited by Steven to come and participate in the event itself. So we weren't just there as bystanders. We were there and we held a panel discussion with, I think it was originally supposed to be 7, but it ended up being 9 people turned up on stage to essentially run almost like a speed round podcast kind of concept with these KOLs that had come from more parts of the world. We had people from the UK, like Dr. Lee Walker, Dr. Tapan Patel, Dr. Dalvi Hamza,
Beatriz
Stephanie
Molina.
Land. Yeah, we had a whole raft of them, and they all come from different backgrounds, different parts of the world. And so Steven and us had been talking about how we'd be involved, and we landed on essentially leading a panel discussion and sort of grilled these KOLs on various topics. I mean, 20 minutes is pretty brief for us. I mean, those that listen to us know we like to have long form discussions, and our podcast kind of run for about 90 minutes most of the time. So it was put us on the spot and put us a little bit outside the comfort zone, which I think is important.
I mean, Steven pitched it to the crowd as it's a live Inside Aesthetics podcast, which I guess, in a way it was. And after this preamble, we're going to let you hear what happened. But it wasn't really a podcast, was it? It was a panel discussion where we got to, I mean, Steven and us were sort of planning this loosely over several months, but really we just designed it to be, let's throw some curveballs at some clever people and see what happens. Yeah. And that wasn't, if you're one of those guests, it wasn't designed to trip you up. It was actually really designed to make the audience think and of course yourself think, because we turn up on stage, we do all this stuff, you kind of go through the motions, and sometimes you can almost forget what you're doing. And I think that as well, that getting softball questions or questions that everyone's prepared for, it's a bit of a it feels too contrived and sort of too planned, whereas we want to ask people questions that everyone's thinking and actually have them answered and not feel handcuffed or restrained by certain people or companies that may be sort of, funding you over there to sort of talk about certain things. So not a knock on that obviously it's important. We need that support from those companies for the industry to run. But I think there's also an element of people wanting to ask tough questions and wanting answers to things and to sort of take all the spin away and get to the root of the topics. What was your feedback from people that, listened or watched?
I mean, obviously we're sort of in a bit of an echo chamber because people aren't going to come up and go, you know what, you really suck. And that was shit.
I don't know. I reckon our listeners would be honest with us by now.
Yeah, look, the feedback we got was great. I think that people would have liked us to go deeper with some of these questions, because we asked them, and we'll get to them in a minute, and we are going to, so just to sort of give you guys a flavour of what's coming, we are going to talk for a little bit and just sort of unpack some of the topics that we sort of discussed, but we are going to cut to the actual panel discussion so you guys can hear exactly what happened as it happened, what happened and as it happened at the actual event. But we only sort of got to ask a single question and they gave a response, but we didn't really get to press them on it or sort of unpack it in any great detail, which I think would have been nice. So the feedback was positive. I think a lot of people were fans of the podcast and sort of were excited to sort of see us and sort of be there in person and feel like part of the conversation. But I think the message was how we would have loved if you guys could have gone for a little bit longer and sort of fleshed out things a little more.
I have to admit, even though it wasn't a podcast, it was obviously different. It did feel weird for us because, of course, we're sat here in our studio. I know where my coffee is, your coffee is. We know where all our stuff is. We often would have had a bit of a preamble about what we're going to talk about, but to be thrust on stage in front of 800 people with not really any of our environment on props, it did feel a bit disarming. But at the same time, it went perfectly fine. We're happy with it.
Yeah, it was great. So in terms of what we actually discussed, do you want to sort of talk to any of those sort of points?
Well, just to, I guess, go further on what you said. So yes, we originally had 7 guests lined up and essentially 1 question each. We did also have a couple more up our sleeve just in case we had a bit more time for whatever reason. We never got to that.
Stephen was there with his whistle. We had so not only were we in front of like 800 or 900 people, there was a screen in front of us with a countdown timer. So we just like...
And Stephen was supposed to act as our timekeeper. He specially bought this big green whistle and if a guest or indeed us went on for too long, he was supposed to blow it. Did he blow it once?
He did in the end. Yeah, he did. Halfway. I think was it Who was answering the last question? I think was it Beatriz? I think was answering anyway. Yeah, and she got hammer timed by him with the whistle.
But like you say, it felt not deep enough. You know, you ask a question, and I actually can't remember some of the responses because you're trying to
think of the next
question, and you're almost not acting as a good host because you're not steering the conversation. You're just trying to get to the next question.
Yeah.
But I felt like some of the guests, maybe deliberately or not deliberately, didn't quite answer the question.
Yeah.
And I wanted to sort of press them and say, hey, well, that's wonderful, but we never got to that.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll get one or two of our guests back on to explore some of these things. But in the meantime, why don't we play you what was said, what was done, and then after that, we'll unpack one or two of the major themes.
Cool.
Enjoy, guys.
Thank you very much. If I can have the panel all up here, please. So, Angelo, if we can bring the panel for this session up, please. Welcome, everyone. I just want to announce this is the very, very first time in the universe where we have a podcast, a professional podcast company in collaboration with Aesthetics. I thought it would be nice to have a live podcast in front of a live audience rather than in that tiny little room these two are normally used to. And this is obviously inside Aesthetics for overseas individuals. These are a well-known podcast in this part of the country and the rest of the world. You can actually take the QR code, and also just below it, there's another QR code for Inside Aesthetic Patreons that these two sort of run in terms of workshop as well as business, running of a business. So with that in mind, I'm just going to pass over to Jake Sloan and David to start the podcast. You have 23 minutes, guys.
No pressure then. So welcome, guys. We're going to try and use this, I guess, as a real podcast. We're going to see what audio we can get.
See what happens.
So welcome to the first ever live Inside Aesthetics. Obviously, this is going to be a little bit different to what we normally do. Normally, it's about an hour and a half. We've got 20 minutes and a few more guests than we normally have.
Turbo session. And Steven's going to be our timekeeper. And I don't know if we'll get through all of our guests. We've got one question lined up for all of you. And I didn't know that Priya was going to be joining us, so we'll try and make up a question for you. And Steven, where's your whistle? Where's your green whistle?
It's all under control.
Okay.
Let's start the show, guys.
So for our guests, please no longer than a minute and a half, so we can try and rattle through everyone.
And I guess for people listening to this podcast, when it comes out and gets published, we've got joined by, what's 7? There's more. Is that 8 now?
9.
9 world-leading injectors and thought leaders from around the world. So just to give it some context.
Absolutely. So we're going to start with Dr. Stephanie.
Yep.
Hello, we met yesterday.
Hello.
You're a plastic surgeon from Hong Kong, for the benefit of the people who don't know.
That's right.
Yesterday, I enjoyed your workshop with Priya. Well done. It was great. And one of the words you used was lifting. Mm-hmm. Very controversial term in non-surgical aesthetics, I guess. So do you truly believe that fillers lift? And if so, how?
I think fillers reposition. But to a patient, the idea of repositioning sometimes can be a little bit difficult to understand. And since patients every day, just like Tapan was saying, every day in the morning, they kind of do this lifting or three-finger salute anyway. A lot of times when I use the term lifting, that's kind of what I mean. But in reality, I feel that we are more repositioning the saggy tissues.
So with just a couple of drops of HA filler, compared to a facelift, we can nudge tissue in a different direction.
Towards the right direction. It cannot obviously change it to the point where it's as taut as what we can achieve surgically, but it can certainly achieve a visible outcome that the patients can appreciate and they feel they're satisfied with.
Okay.
Mr. Walker, are you sweating yet?
Profusely, obviously.
All right, so the term KOL has come under a little bit of scrutiny, a little bit of online mockery from some big accounts. I won't go into specifics.
What does it even mean?
Well, maybe you can tell us what you think it means.
I think it used to mean key opinion leader, and I think that the minds within the companies would often give opinions which were key, and we would lead them. I think that's what KOL means. But what it means now is something very different. I don't particularly like the term KOL. I just like the term medical educator, very specific to aesthetic medicine, because there's lots of key opinion leaders, and one of the questions I used to ask is, so what key opinions have you led? It's like, well, none. So it's about medical education. I think when we re-term the semantics, just like the lift, I think about lift as just movement of light rather than repositioning of tissues, because that's what we chase. We chase shadows, and beauty lives in light. So the key opinion leader thing, I think it's a bit of a misnomer, because lots of companies don't ask opinions of their key opinion leaders. They just ask them to inject on a stage and try to get the best out of the product as possible. So I'd like to see a change in the semantics to medical education, and I'd like some of the medical educators to actually become teachers, and that's one of the things that I did. I taught myself to be a teacher by going back to school and getting postgraduate qualifications in clinical and medical education.
Sure, and I guess just to follow up from that question, I mean, you guys have flown all around the world, you've got all your expenses paid, you wined and you dined. Do you think there's any sort of validity to people thinking that there might be a form of unconscious bias there? So what do you say to those critics who think that key opinion leaders could be essentially like paid stooges to a certain extent?
You have to agree, because you stick your flag in the ground and you work for that company. It's, Tapan's not going to talk about the products I work with, and I'm not going to talk about them. There is an element of bias, but there's an element of bias in sports. You wear a red shirt and you want to kick the ball in the other person's goal. So there's always an element of bias amongst it. It's how you drive that education forward. Me personally, I'm very evidence-based, so everything that I do tends to come from the evidence. And instead of a technique or a certain way to do things, for me, it's about trying to use the current evidence base to try and get the best out of the products which I'm using.
Yeah. And do you ever find yourself in a position where maybe you might disagree with the company's stance, or what do you do in those positions where you might find yourself morally compromised or professionally compromised?
I don't like to see myself in either of those compromising positions. But again, we have that sort of very simple ATP, and we have clinical freedom to do what we want to do. And I think that's the important thing, is that when you're offered clinical freedom, you can utilize your own skill set to get the best out of it. Not everybody wants to inject in a certain way, in an algorithmic way. I understand that's an easy way to remember things and to get you started off. But for me, technique is about how I do things, and I'll utilize the rheology based around my skill set. So I think clinical freedom, I think, is one of the good things that I have.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, tough question, but I think that, we live in a world now where people appreciate transparency and honesty, and thank you.
Tapan, how are you feeling after last night?
I'm worried more about what you're about to ask.
So look, we're all trainers, we've all had to live inject, it's pressure.
You said we can ask anything.
Yeah.
I want to know about last night.
And look, when you're on stage live injecting, you've got a room full of backseat drivers criticizing, critiquing. So if you were chairing a meeting and you were watching some live injectings from one of your colleagues and they did something pretty unsterile, would you let it slide, or would you call them out and educate the audience?
First of all, I'm just trying to think of what I did in my live injection, and I hope it's not a targeted question. Look, I think it's important to understand there is what we do in our clinics on a day-to-day basis. We have a comfort zone. We have familiarity with that. And for anyone who hasn't injected in a workshop environment, it is slightly different. You're using an environment you're not used to. The lighting is different. There's a cameraman there. You're trying to educate. You're trying to get a result. You're trying to you're trying to showcase certain things. You may have an assistant you've never used. And, in Australia, it's different for us from an English-speaking world. But you could go to some parts of the world where your assistants, your patients, there could be a language block. So let's start by understanding that it is a
different skill set, okay? It's one that takes a bit of practice, and sometimes we do things which we wouldn't normally do in clinical practice, and we may not even be aware we're doing them, okay? So I know that pretty much everyone who makes it into a senior faculty for any company has a great skill set, sterile injecting. Yes, in the heat of the moment, things will often happen that, you may not even realize you might be touching the skin or inserting a needle without swabbing, cleaning, and whatever. If I see it in the audience, it can be, awkward, with colleagues to sort of bring something up. I think it just depends on the nature of the friendship you share with that person. I always say that, with any educational experience, you've got to take the good and the bad, and as a delegate, you've got to say, okay, what did I like about that? I like the way he or she held the syringe. I like the way they did the markings. I like the way they positioned the patient. What did I not agree with? Okay, I will make sure that moving forward, will take greater care with the sterility, with the hemostasis, with the patient comfort or whatever. So I think, your point is that when you're watching it, it's not necessary to criticize, but to take the messages, both positive and negative, and just make sure that you as an individual take that back to your own personal training.
I'll call you Dr. Hamza because you haven't met yet.
Call me whatever you like, really.
I've heard you're a very deep thinker, so this question has been specifically designed for you. And so I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. So we're in an industry now where we're incentivized to buy more products, and we buy more products, we get favorable or discounted rates from pharmaceutical companies. Do you think that's ethical? Do you think that's right? What are your thoughts on that? I guess because as healthcare practitioners, you're not wanting to oversell, and we're living in that world now where people want honesty and they want real. So what do you think about that sort of difficult proposition?
I think there are quite a lot of products now. So just go by an acronym which I like, which is called HAIL. Okay, HAILs are very useful. Be honest. Right? Look at those and get some honesty about those products. Do they really work? Then you need to look at the authenticity. Who are the people behind it? Is there good authenticity of that about it? And then you have some integrity. And this is what we all have to have. We all have to have some integrity in what we do. And that's really important. If you've got the integrity, you will be able to shift out all that sort of, what's good, what's bad, and be there. And finally, which is a really personal thing, you must have love. You must love the work you do. You must love the product you're using. And then it doesn't matter whether it's one product or another. If you love that product, you will get really good results with it. And I think the 4 principles, if you use that, you will really get excellent results, both for yourself and your patients.
Now, Dr. Wanik-Fakdidicha.
Before we do that, we've got
Give
some
me
time
easy one.
here.
Easy one, please.
Well,
Thinking about your next Thailand trip.
For the princess.
Delvi, that was so good.
This wasn't scripted.
But I don't think you have answered the question, though. Have you?
Oh my goodness, you noticed.
You got a round of applause.
It sounds very good. That's why you're so great, but I'm a tough interviewer.
What was the question?
Remember the question?
Yeah.
The question is it ethical for a pharmaceutical company to offer discounts for us to buy in bulk? And what does that do in terms of your decision-making process?
I think it depends what you mean by ethics. Because there's business ethics and there's medical ethics.
Yeah.
Right? So medical ethics is one thing. Medical ethics is how you're going to be treating that patient. Now, the business ethics is slightly different because a business is a business, and a business is the company has its business, the company has its responsibility to its shareholders, it has a business to run. And any company that runs a business that doesn't give discounts in bulk is probably just spiting its face, and that's not right.
But would you consider your clinic a business as well?
In your clinical business, I probably don't give bulk discounts to patients. There are certain things, obviously, we all do it. Look, if you're doing surgery and you're doing 3 procedures rather than 1, you don't charge them 3 times 1 procedure.
Yeah.
You do 1 plus 50% plus 25% or whatever. That's a normal thing because you're not 3 things. So then you're saying, is it ethical that you give a discount when you're doing a surgery? Well, it is ethical because it's working on that same principle. So a company would have to give you a discount. It's just like if you went down to a warehouse and bought, 10 cars for your fleet of cars, you would get a discount. So yes, I think it's fairly ethical, as long as it's not compromising patient safety and the ethics of the.
But it's a difficult situation, isn't it? Because you've got medical and you've also got the commercial realities of running a business, and it's about trying to find the middle ground and making sure the ethics are still.
And this is the issue of any part of medicine where you've got money exchanging hands, and it's something that we all have to face. Because if you work in a public sector where you're not charging patients, that's easy. I can order any operation, do whatever procedure I like. But when money starts changing hands, that's where that honesty, integrity, and all that comes in. Because you have to have that.
Because I know there's situations where injectors will buy a whole lot of product. You talk to other injectors who like to have an array of different weapons in their arsenal. And then so if you've already spent all that money on one product, are you sort of limiting your capacity or ability to treat with other products if you think they're more appropriate? So
but you choose the product that you like rather than just buying it all in bulk.
Have we grilled him enough, Stephen? Or
Say enough, Stephen.
I thought he's answered very well.
I guess in summary, are they buying your loyalty is really the point.
Yeah, I mean, loyalty and buying loyalty is something that you have to fight against. And I think it also comes exactly what Lee was talking about. What do you do when you don't agree with the company? You have to call out. You have to have your standards and abide by that standard.
Perfect. Now I'm going to say it again. Dr. Wanik Fakdadicha, otherwise known as Dr. Salmon Sperm.
You can pronounce even better than my husband.
It's your husband's name, isn't it? Question for you, and I did check that you do threads before you got here. I texted you. So lifting threads we're talking about. We've had, 221 podcasts now? And every time we get someone on, we ask them either online or offline, what do you think of lifting threads? And honestly, the vast majority have been disappointed. They've tried, they've played, used different brands, etc. And very few, including yourself, are doing it regularly. So are you just amazing? Or are we stupid? Like, what is it that people are not getting that you're getting? Why are you satisfied and we're not?
Can I pretend not to understand the questions? Because I'm not speak English as first language. But to be honest, so let's think about it here. We all need mechanical lifting from time to time. So, energy-based device is tightening. But sometimes when you claim the lifting, it's so difficult. And to be honest, not much of the company or machine can get the FDA for the lifting. So lifting is the difficult word. And that is why, when the patient coming to us and then having that kind of lift, that is mechanical lifting. So for me, I think when you're working with thread and then you want to get a very good result, what you are looking for is any thread that provide temporary, short-term mechanical lifting. But, you need something to stimulate collagen over the period of time. So which means the composition of the thread is supposed to be very important. So there is some of the thread, I'm not mention the name, that has composition that when it dissolves, it stimulates collagen along the area that you put the thread on. And I'm thinking that might be the ideal thread. So, you don't need something that is stay like that for forever, because one day when you, your fat disposition, fall again, you might get something that is like that and looks so unnatural. So, for me, I think you need something that can be used for filling the gap that fillers, toxin, and energy-based device cannot really provide. That is the short-term lifting. So I think that is the thread coming for.
I am Professor Rongsuma's brother.
I think the time is up.
I'm Professor Rongsuma. I think the question that you ask your panel is, if you ask most Asian plastic surgeon and dermatologists, they do believe in it. And simply because we're talking about a completely different type of patient selection. You have a lot of Asian patients who have a thicker dermis, the fat pads are a lot more fibrous, whereas the Anglo-Saxon, the European, everybody else, the fat as you get older become quite soft like butter, and if you have the bulb, it just cuts through easily. So that's why I actually agree with you that those patient works well. It is not lifting, just like Stefania Lam said, it is actually reposition the fat. It create an illusion that it is a bit higher. And I said that because even though I don't do a lot, we select patient carefully. For every 10 patients wanting thread, I maybe pick one. I think that's is a patient selection.
Perfect.
Okay. Zunaid.
Oh my God, the question.
Have I pronounced it correctly?
This is a hard one.
I'm now off the hook.
So we've seen a lot of products being injected today. Presumably you've used many of them, if not all of them. And you hear a lot of key opinion leaders or people who are at the top of their game say, HAs, fillers, if you know what you're doing, you should be able to use any product. So is there a difference between fillers? Is it just corporate spin? Is rheology real? What do you think?
Rheology is absolutely crucial in the construction of any kind of HA-based gel. So HA is essentially very cheap to buy.
Not here.
Well, yeah, because you have regulation. I would say that, I mean, it's a molecule that you could very easily manipulate into a skincare product or topical, and you could actually modify it into a significantly more robust sort of high G prime gel. Where, and with all the esteemed panel, we are comparing premium fillers with premium fillers, and it's really in their research and in their composition that you find that they all have their superpower. It's the cross-linking design, it's its performance in the tissue, maintaining the longevity that it says on the side of the box. So I think that it is very, very important for each a key opinion leader to actually understand the rheology first before they kind of like sort of take it to market. We also, the more we work within our particular brand, I think the better we get at it.
Yeah.
We know what it does, we know where we should place it, we know the volumes that we should be using superficially and deep, and I think that is really where you take what, you know, the gel that is in the syringe, and you kind of complete your full 360 treatment plan with your patient.
Yeah. But for new injectors who potentially don't have a lot of experience, you know, as soon as they finish, the pharmaceutical companies are very keen to get hold of them and sell them their story. And I'm not here to say whether it's true, whether it's not. But what advice would you have for new injectors that are trying to figure out what product they should use for their methods and their patients and what works for them? Because you need the experience, right?
Absolutely. I would say before you kind of settle on a particular brand, most injectors in the UK will take the best of each of the brands and put them together. It's really how a product will perform in your hand when you're performing a treatment. So I would say to them, just try the premium products. Really don't go subpar. You have the premiums in Australia. We have 200 brands of HA filler available for purchase in the UK. So I would say, keep it premium. It is a medical specialty. It is a medical procedure. I see it as a minor surgical procedure, even just the placement of filler. So I would say, try a lot of the different brands, attend the teaching, attend the trainings that are on offer. A lot have e-learning platforms that they could, see some skill, do some cases, build their portfolio and reflect on it before they decide, if they want to settle on one particular brand or just use the best of each.
I've got one last question for our friend Beatriz. I've not met you before, so hello.
Hello.
Zunaid just touched on the fact that the UK lacks regulation. So we in Australia, nurses, doctors, dentists can inject. In the UK, anyone can inject. So where do we draw the line? Who is competent?
I think that's a very good question. And we do have a very serious issue in the United Kingdom because, as you very rightly say, I think years ago it was pretty much just doctors, then nurses came along and they started injecting, then we got the dentist. But over the last few years, because there is not a process for regulation which stops non-medics to inject, people started, so beauty therapists first, then, I don't know, anyone really. I mean, you could own a gene and just decide you do a little bit of a course and then that's it. You offer a little bit of training and power and then a little bit of injecting. So we do have a problem. At the moment, the JCCP is working very closely with government and also with the British College of Aesthetic Medicine, obviously the nurses, associations, just together to try to regulate it. It's been happening for a little while now, quite a few years, but we're moving very slowly like a turtle forward. I think it's going to be hard to stop it fully, because once people are doing it, how are you going to suddenly, unless government finally pass this law, which at the moment they're not very interested because they've got so many other problems, I think, in the lab. So it's hard, very hard.
Yeah. Well, one of the problems we have in Australia is we're reasonably well regulated, and yet when new laws are passed, like 1st of July, suddenly people are up in arms saying it's too much and it's too difficult. So it's very hard to actually say we want regulation, because when you're regulated, you then complain and say we don't like it. So,
but what is really, in a way, very strange is that, for example, us doctors are extremely regulated. Like, we have to do an appraisal every year, we have to do so many hours of training, we have to submit a lot of documentation every year to be on the GMC registry. So for us, it's fine. Nurses got a similar process, dentists got a process. It's the rest that don't have anything, but because it's not illegal, when fortunately in other places, is illegal.
Thank you very much.
I think that means it's time, does it?
Yeah, thank you very much, Inside Aesthetics.
Thank you.
That was
Thank
a
you,
good
guys.
run. We'll do a slightly longer one next week.
Thank you.
The rest of the panel, do you want to stay here for us, please?
All right.
If we can.
Thank you. Thank you.
What do you guys think? Did we pass?
Yeah. Oh, look, it was obviously not a live podcast in any traditional IA episode, but nonetheless, I think it was hopefully enjoyable to listen to what some of the guests said. So I think the two of the sort of key questions that maybe you did get a chance to press a bit more was the question that you originally posed to Lee Walker. Lee's the Tioxane Global Lead for Education. He's a dentist by trade, wonderful guy, good friend of the podcast. And I mean, you asked the question, what was it?
Well, the question was surrounding KOLs. So key opinion leader that's the KOL is the acronym. And it's come under a bit of scrutiny and I guess mockery or questions around the legitimacy of this KOL, which is essentially someone that's been handpicked by a company to provide opinions.
Yes.
And I guess the aim is that those opinions are in line with the message that the company wants to get across. And for that, and you're a KOL as well, so I mean, we're just being brutally honest here. If in return for those opinions and lending their credibility to the product or the company, that KOL is then financially remunerated. So they get an amount of money for appearing. They get their flights and accommodation taken care of. I would assume there is an allowance for food and sort of that per diem kind of arrangement. And so the question was, like there have been some pretty big personalities on the internet, like people like Dr. Christian Subio, who's got a very big following and has a very, very funny account, which gets a lot of attention. And I think it was about a year ago, he sort of, had some fairly disparaging things to say about the whole concept of the KOL, and I sort of can see where he's coming from. So this is not a criticism of his, but I guess it just started not a criticism of him, but I guess it was the impetus for some discussions that have flowed on from there, which is this right? Are these people? Is it sort of like a pay for play kind of thing? How unbiased is your opinion? So the question to Lee was, with all of this sort of criticism that's come about in relation to the key opinion leader term, what do you say to the critics that think you're just essentially a paid stooge?
Yeah.
And so that was the question that was asked. And I mean, what did you think of the response?
I thought he answered it pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, and I had just to say, I may have even referenced myself as a KOL in the past, but I don't think I've ever officially been given a title.
Yeah.
I don't think, the people I've represented have ever said, you are a KOL.
Yeah.
It just seems to sort of be an industry definition.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's an official term. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Lee was sort of right. What is your opinion?
Yeah.
Because if you are going on stage just to deliver a slide deck that's been approved and branded, it's not really your opinion at all. You're just a spokesperson, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know any trainers. I can't think of an example where someone has gone up and not, then coloured that conversation with their own experience or their own spin on things.
Yeah.
And that really is where, well, that's why you've been handpicked to do the talk or the training, because sure, you've been given a product, a technique, but in your own practice, you're going to maybe develop your own cool little spin on that.
Yeah.
So I sort of feel like any trainer who goes up and talks probably does have an opinion. Don't know if it's key. But I think it's a little bit harsh to say you're just a paid stooge and you're just doing what you're paid to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anyone with any credibility would want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess sometimes the effects of being paid to do something can sort of find its way into your subconscious.
Yeah.
And so whilst you might not be consciously saying things that you don't sort of agree with, there is, I mean, we're all human beings at the end of the day, no matter how many degrees you have or letters you have before or after your name. We are all still susceptible to unconscious bias. And also what tends to happen is you get caught in these little echo chambers where all of a sudden you're a KOL for a certain company and you're talking to other KOLs and you're dealing with people, like you're just sort of surrounded by that product. So you almost in some ways develop an immunity to anything outside of those views because you kind of find yourself there. And it's not really a criticism, because I don't know if there's a better way to do it. I mean, I've got a few loose ideas on sort of how you would try and remove that perception of, actual or perceived bias. But I understand the company's perspective, because people believe doctors and nurses and people that have got experience and credibility and a track record in a particular space.
Yeah.
And so you want someone who carries that sort of gravitas and has that knowledge to then be, a flag bearer for your product and to be able to give that technical information. So the criticism isn't without acknowledgement that it's a necessary evil.
Yes.
It's just we need to recognise it, and are there ways we potentially can do it better?
Yeah. I mean, this is actually an interesting concept, and going back to what is A23 or the concept of the previous conferences as well, it was supposed to be about being unbiased, as brand unspecific as possible. But of course, you need some product and you need someone to inject it on stage. So
of course.
One suggestion actually from one of the listeners, which I thought was actually pretty good and reasonable, would be, well, if this is, a KOL from, stylage, then that probably should be made explicit, just so there's no grey or you're left to sort of question, well, what is this product and who does this person represent? Just be completely honest.
Yeah.
Say this person's been flown from London. Yes, they're sponsored. This is the product they're going to use, and take it or leave it. That's what we're going to do today.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're going to be truly, truly, truly transparent, do that for everyone, whether you're from Allergan, Galderma, Tioxane, whoever. Just say. It's not like a secret. We know it's come from somewhere.
Yeah, of course.
And then it just feels like, transparent. I can't think of a better word.
Yeah. I guess as well, and I don't really understand the rules on this, because it seems like some people, some KOLs, have almost been given a pass to represent multiple companies. So someone like Steven, who's got the reputation and the track record to kind of command maybe different rules for him than there are for other people. You'll find someone like him might be able to say, well, no, I'm going to talk about Allergan products, and I'm going to talk about Galderma products, and I'm going to talk about Tioxane products, and you're all going to pay me for it. And my opinion's my opinion, and that's just how it is, and you can take it or leave it. And then there are others who are asked to sign, I think, exclusivity with certain brands. And then so why are there different rules for different people? That kind of has never really made sense to me.
I've never seen someone, I'm sure it does exist, none of the companies I've worked with have ever said you've got to be exclusive. It may well be...
Is it implied? Is it kind of implied though?
No, you have to declare your, associations with other brands. So if I work for 2 filler companies, which I do, I have to tell both companies that this is what I'm doing. And of course, if they're not comfortable with that, then they might not employ me. That's different.
Okay, so if Tioxane called you tomorrow and said, hey, Dr. Jake, we love you. We want to offer you X amount of dollars to be our key opinion leader, knowing that you're committed to Allergan, and they say, well, we don't have a problem with that. We're happy to share you. What would your reaction be, and how do you think Allergan would respond to that?
Well, I think it's easy to answer to say that happens. I know several colleagues who in the last year have done that. So,
and how does that go? Are they successful in it?
Yeah, they're doing it. I don't know if they're successful.
Okay.
Of course, whether you're, I don't want to use any brand's name, but you kind of want that trainer to almost be yours, not because you own them, but because it adds to the credibility.
Yeah.
Using Steven as an example, he's an extremely experienced global injector. He's a plastic surgeon. It would almost be strange that he doesn't have the ability to not be able to talk from many different sort of perspectives. Same as Greg Goodman or Steve Dayan or Sabrina Farby. Some of these people work with all of the companies because the companies really want their honest knowledge in the research phase and the trial stage.
Yeah.
But sure, if you're a junior injector, it would almost be weird to spread yourself so thin because you don't have the experience.
Yeah.
And in fact, I wouldn't find that credible if I saw someone on stage who's, with less experience talking as if like they had it. So I don't know. You could argue this both ways, but I certainly don't think that someone should make you sign a contract saying you can't.
Yeah, but you might, I'm just sort of asking the question to be sort of devil's advocate and sort of just tease this out and maybe be asking what people might be thinking while listening to this is, is there an implied pressure there that, it's not said, but that, they want you all to themselves and there could be some feathers ruffled if you because if you look at, and I'm not going to point out any particular company because I think I've seen instances of all this kind of behavior from all the companies I've had interactions with over the years is, they'll turn up with their papers and their research and they'll say, our product is better than this person's product and here's our research that we paid for that shows that it is.
Yeah.
And so, there's almost like this culture of wanting to say bad things about your competitors and how your product's so much better.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if that kind of filters through into sort of, the way that sort of people who communicate that or educate people.
Me and Lee are a classic example. We always give each other banter. Always. Yeah. The first thing I'll say to him is, some banter about, his allegiance or mine, and it's fine. And we really respect each other, deep down. But it's funny because we know our role. We know which sort of hat we're wearing, I guess.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we've got very professional respect for each other, and it's weird. I think it's more of a perceived barrier than a real barrier.
Yeah.
We spoke, must be a year ago about this thing of tribalism and people sort of planting their flag in the sand saying, I'm here and you're there and we can't talk. It does happen.
Yeah.
I go to conferences and maybe people who don't know as well, there is this sort of perceived us and them kind of thing, which is really silly.
Yeah.
I think a bit immature.
Yeah.
I would love to learn from them and they should hopefully learn from me if I can teach them something that they don't know.
Yeah. It's crazy. Because some of the things I've seen over the years with reps that'll come into clinics and they'll see another competitor product in your cupboard and they'll almost scold you about it.
Yeah.
Like, what's that doing here?
Yeah.
It's sort of like, well, what?
I think that's unprofessional as well. I think you need to rise above that.
Yeah.
And then you actually would come across with more credibility that actually it's water off a duck's back. You do you, and I'll just tell you what I know.
Well, if your product's as good as what you say it is and you're able to back it up with training and support and education, then you shouldn't really need to go down that path because the product should
speak for itself.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it is changing. I guess that's why it was a pertinent question, is because we're kind of living in that world of people starting to become consciously aware of the way things work and sort of some of the challenges. And I don't mean any of this to sort of criticize any particular company. I'm come from a commercial business background. I'm acutely aware of the commercial realities of this business and pharmaceutical companies have done a lot of great things for the world. It's not a criticism of them. It's just a criticism of the system.
Yeah.
And I know they're working within the system. But I kind of think that, maybe as we move forward, we need to look at different ways to do it so you remove that element of potential unconscious bias. The other potential challenge is that if you become, a key opinion leader for a product and you're using that product, like I know, for example, you predominantly use Botox and Juvederm range. So what is your exposure to other products? How would you be able to compare one with the other or know that you're using what's best for your patients if you've sort of been, moved in, like sort of, well, in some ways, you've sort of limited your access to other things that are on the market. So how do you know at any given point in time that you're doing the best by your patients, or that there isn't something out there that's better, or testing one against the other, and be able to get up there and say with your hand on your heart, hey, look, I'm here representing company X, and this is because I've used everything. I've chosen this. I'm a KOL for this company, and my opinions are backed up by the fact that I have a broad spectrum knowledge, and I've tried and tested everything, and this is why I'm saying this.
Yeah, well, I've been injecting for nearly 16 years. I think 16 years in February coming. So in the UK, I was never using Botox. I used a lot of Dysport. In fact, the first thing I used was the acumen. Of course, I used Botox. Those were the only 3 available at the time. Here in Australia, we've now had a 4th toxin, launched, and I've trialed that or played with that, should I say. I've used Belotero. I've used many other brands that aren't even available in Australia, but this was obviously years ago. So I sort of feel like I do come from a pretty sound perspective of what works for me, what doesn't work for me. Of course, in the last few years, from a business perspective, let alone a brand perspective, I've decided what I like, what works, and I've always been honest with people when people ask me that sort of question. I'm like, if I wasn't achieving a result with what's in my cupboard, I would have no questions turning to a new product to trial that to see if it worked. So I guess I'm lucky in the sense that the portfolio I have works, but as things evolve, I will have to evolve. That's just logical, and I'd be stupid to say otherwise. We've had biostimulators become much more popular recently. And currently, my portfolio in the brand that I'm using doesn't have one. So therefore, of course, I will trial other biostimulators. That's just logical.
Of course.
I train for Profilo because, again, it's a different product that doesn't really live in the portfolio that you mentioned. So I use it. So I think it's a little bit short-sighted for maybe people listening to think that you're sort of bought by a company. You do have to try other things, and you do have to sort of go to conferences, be exposed to different things. And from A23, there's plenty of new things coming.
Absolutely.
So, if you're an injector listening and you kind of a bit confused, just try stuff. Reach out to the reps, have a little sesh with a new filler that you've never used, and you may well go, wow, I didn't even know this existed, but I love it. But you do have to try. But at the same time, you've got to marry that with the commercial realities of your business. And that sort of comes on to our second question. What was your question?
Well, you guys just listened to it. So, I mean, just to unpack it, it was the question relating to pharmaceutical companies offering discounts for bulk buying. And so I wasn't there to sort of say yes or no to that or to give my opinion. It was more a question around, is it ethical to do that? And I guess why we just sort of designed that question was because, as practitioners like yourself, Jake, and the people listening to this, you're sort of bound by a code of ethics, which is, to do no harm and to do the best thing by the patient. And so it sort of seems that whole, and I understand, again, this is not a criticism of pharma at all. This is just looking at things from a completely objective perspective. When you've got a company that's incentivizing you to buy more products, and in return for that bulk buy, you get a reward. And that reward is a discount or a rebate or, some financial incentive to buy more products than what you ordinarily would. And so what does that then do to the psyche of that business owner or that injector? Because whilst that is coming at you from one direction, you're then being imposed with, well, we want to be ethical. You never want to push patients down a certain path because it's driven by a reason other than what's best medically and ethically for them. And so it was, is it ethical to do that? Because you're not supposed to oversell. If you've had a company approach you and say, if you buy 50 boxes of filler, we're going to give you 10 for free. Well, all of a sudden you've got this thing in the back of your head saying, holy crap, I've got 50 boxes of this stuff in my cupboard. It's only going to last 2 years. I need to get it out the door. Are you going to be inclined to suggest something that patient potentially doesn't need, or you're just going to sort of push the envelope a little bit further than what you would because you've now got that in the back of your head? So I wasn't giving an opinion. It was more, is it ethical and is it worth the discussion, and how do we feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, again, let's reference Subio. He sort of, I don't know what the word is, he mocked, the tiering system of how some of the companies, I guess, that you get more of a discount for the more you buy.
Diamond encrusted level or something.
Yeah, black diamond. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, it's funny, I guess, but I didn't really understand it personally. I mean, I think we have discussed this on the podcast before. I mean, look, at your very basic level as a doctor, nurse, whatever, you're going to do what's right for your patient, or I certainly hope you do. Because if you're not, you're not practicing by, the code of what AHPRA want you to work by. So that's kind of a given, or it should be a given. But I think what you're really getting at is that people may be lacking business acumen. They're making commercial decisions, financial decisions, maybe with not a great understanding of, their projection of what they're actually going to do with that product over a year. And sure, that puts people under stress. If they've got thousands of dollars of stuff that's going to expire in a month because they haven't used it, then I can sort of understand how that ethical debate comes in, but it really shouldn't.
Yeah, it shouldn't. I mean, and just to sort of take it one step further as well, like if you're a new, what you referenced in the previous part of our chat around the KOL thing, if you're a new injector who doesn't have a lot of experience, and as soon as these injectors sort of make their way into the marketplace, they're kind of fresh meat for all these companies to sort of get in front of them and tell them why they should stock their product. And so if you've sort of then been convinced that it's in your best interest to buy this, then are you then limiting your ability to experience other products? I mean, are you able to try those?
And you're an idiot.
Yeah. So, but do you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, like that I've seen that happen. Yeah. I've seen that happen lots of times where you'll get caught, you'll in the heat of the moment, sounds like a great deal. You're sort of all hyped up on this new great product, or the one you think is going to give you everything that you need. And then you sort of hamstring your ability to sort of experience everything because you can't afford to buy you can't afford to buy the product.
Well, look, if you're listening and you're a new injector, or you've just opened a clinic, whatever, I understand that temptation because you want to save some dollars and you want to make your business grow. I get it. But, if you know that you're only seeing a handful of patients a week, or you're not quite sure, or it's a bit up and down because of the economy, buy small. Yeah, you can always buy again in a month, or whatever it is. But you need 6 months of a pattern of what your business looks like before you can make any bigger decisions. I mean, you're the expert. What would you say?
I mean, most businesses, and I was just talking to a client this morning in the States about this. Like, she's looking to acquire a business, and one of the businesses she's looking to acquire has just been, they've got like copious amounts of stock on their shelves, like devices coming out of everywhere. And it's like you see, and it's not even an old, it's only like 2 or 3 years old, this business. And so both of these proprietors of this business still have other jobs outside of their practice. Yeah. So there is this, I see it like, with people that aren't business savvy, as you said, who feel that they need to have everything in their shelves and every device under the sun, and they put themselves in really financially stressful situations, which again, it doesn't have to just be product on your shelf. It could be a device that you got convinced to buy. Yeah. And all of a sudden, the break-even cost of your business every week goes up by a couple of $1,000 because of repayments and money that you owe companies. That can mean the difference between being profitable or losing money. Yeah. And so, it's something that tends to happen a lot. We get caught up in the, because as the practitioner, right, you want to have the latest and the greatest. You want to be able to not have to say no to your patients and be able to offer them everything that you can. So there is that.
The answer is yes, but I'm also a bit of a cynic, as you know, and anything that new comes on the market, I'm actually probably, for the most part, going to be a watcher rather than a trendsetter. Yeah. Not for everything. I mean, if it's TGA approved, if I've seen it used in multiple other countries for several years, I've obviously got way more trust in that product. Yeah. But if something was totally new, I would be a watcher, not a trendsetter, and I certainly wouldn't commit to a bulk buy.
So you're a voyeur
sometimes. But actually, I want to balance this argument and actually give pharma a bit of a plug, because they often get a raw deal. I've seen obviously both sides of it as both the customer but also a trainer, and I've worked with many different people. It's very difficult for them. At least here in Australia, I can't speak for other countries. The way it works is you buy the product from them, or most of the bigger brands, should I say. They obviously have to train up those users of their product in a basic, safe way that's approved.
Yeah.
And, you know, that all costs money. You're putting on free training. You're not charging for it. You've got to have facilities. You've got to have staff. You've got to have marketing. Like, they've sort of got to make money somehow and also establish a relationship with injectors.
Yeah.
They go to these conferences, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to, you know, bring trainers and have a stand and a presence. Yeah. So, you know, how are they supposed to justify that, but also not, you know, have some sort of business model that works?
Yeah. And plus all of the regulations that they need to comply with.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some of the conversations that we've had with various pharma companies that have sponsored episodes with us, the amount of legal, I guess, the legal sort of technicalities that you need to work around, or things you can and can't say, in the semantics of certain words versus other words. I agree with you. They're in a really difficult position, because then you've also got sort of the inane approach of the regulators, which is you can't talk about specific products. So everyone's talking in code and trying to work out loopholes of how they can get around certain things. And it just seems so nonsensical and not in the patient's best interest.
Yeah.
Which again makes it more difficult for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you want to make your product more attainable for people, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see an ethical debate. I just see this as a poor business strategy if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know the answer to the problem, but I think that it's something that we need to think about and discuss and be honest about, you know, what's good about the system, what's bad about the system, because that's the only way that we'll evolve and get better, is to sort of challenge the status quo and say, well, you know, this is a potential issue. How can we work around this as an industry to try and make sure that people are getting relevant and fair information and the patients are being looked after? And
I think a big thing in our industry, and you sort of touched on it, is this FOMO, fear of missing out. People get whipped up into a hype over a product, a device, and I don't know. I mean, you advise people on things like that. How do you teach someone to sort of objectively approach a business decision?
Yeah, I mean, I found that doctors and nurses are really easy to sell to. They've just got that.
Some aren't. Some are bloody critical.
You're an asshole, but I mean, just kidding. I love you. But no, a lot of them are very easy to sort of, you know, they're easy to sort of convince of things, and they get, as you said, they get caught up in that. And because a lot of them don't have that cynical, I mean, the only way you learn is through experience, and generally the sort of experiences that teach you lessons are negative experiences or things that have gone wrong. And so it's not a criticism of doctors or nurses to say that you're gullible. It's just you just don't have enough experience in the commercial world to be able to sniff out bullshit, or to be able to sort of break things down that are non-medical in sort of a logical way.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of just the education of doctors and nurses in general, that, and we've discussed this millions of times, is acquiring a skill set that goes beyond just what you do with the needle or the syringe, is actually having a basic degree of business acumen, and to understand what are all the levers in your business, what are the things that are going to dictate success from failure or profit from loss, and think about things critically. You know, it's sort of like a layperson trying to interpret a medical journal. Like, I couldn't do it because I just don't come from that world.
Yeah.
So to ask someone that's medical to look at a profit and loss statement or a balance sheet, or sort of, you know, do forecasting, or, you know, all the concepts that come natural to a business person on how to assess viability of an idea, they don't have it.
Yeah.
Then it's not through their fault. It's just not what you've studied or your experience.
What would you do? I mean, you've owned clinics, and I'm sure you've never really been in a serious situation where you overbought stock.
I have. Yeah. I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe it's different because you're in a franchise and you had lots of people to speak to. But what would you say to an injector who's bought 100 boxes of stuff? I don't know, they've got 50 left and it's expiring in the next few months, and they know they're not going to get through it.
Yeah.
What can you do legally?
Well, I think that conversations that I've had with pharma companies in the past, or suppliers. Let's talk about products. Let's talk about sort of injectable products, because devices is a whole other discussion. Is that you might have an agreement with them that if you don't get through that product within the expiry period, that they will then swap it out for a product that's got a longer use-by date on it, because they can use it for something else, training or whatever it is, right? Because you can't legally inject a product that's expired.
Yes.
So I would think about risk mitigation. So how do I minimize the risk of being stuck with 20 or 30 syringes of, tens of thousands of dollars of product on my shelf and having to throw it in the bin? Is to come up with a strategy that will circumvent that. So talking to the pharma companies to say, hey, I'm happy to commit to this order, but hey, if it isn't received the way that I think it's going to be received, or you haven't, we forecast together of what it's going to look like, I need to know that I'm not going to get stuck with this product. So can we come to an agreement where I will give you 6 months notice when this product's expiring and you can swap it out for something that's more current? So
That's
I've got more time
a really
to get
practical solution.
to get it off my... I find a lot of issues that clinics run into is they just don't have good stock control policy at all. So now we're venturing sort of into sort of operational stuff, but that's the way we roll, is they just don't have good stock control policies. So they're not doing stock control on a monthly basis.
Who do you think is the best person to look after that? Is it the injector?
If it's your business, I mean, you're the one that's taking the money out of your pocket to pay for this stuff. So at the end of the day, the buck stops with you. Yeah. So it's about putting systems and processes in place. So, you should be checking your stock twice a day. If it's just you, it can be slightly different. But once you start
twice a day for me.
Yeah, once you start getting other people involved and there's multiple hands. And
in a clinic like what you used to run, you want to be in there 4 times a day.
An absolute minimum, you should be like just doing a sanity check once a week on your stock. Yeah. So you should be able to say, on Monday I had X vials of this and X syringes of that. Yeah. And at the end of the week I've got this, and that should, within a small degree of variance. Fillers, not so much, because you can't, the syringe just doesn't disappear, but units can kind of, some get stuck in the barrel or, whatever, your dilution might not be completely bang on. But you should, within a small degree of variance at the end of that, let's call it that week, what you opened with versus what you closed with should roughly equate to what you've used, so it should be in your drug book.
Yes.
And so that's the way you sanity check. And then so I find a lot of people don't keep on top of their stock, so they don't know when it came in.
No idea.
When it went out.
Yeah.
That sort of opens a door for theft, because as soon as staff members know that you're not meticulous and process-driven, if you give people an opportunity to do the wrong thing, unfortunately sometimes people will take advantage of that. Yeah. So just remove that opportunity altogether. But also just knowing for yourself, when new products comes in, just something as simple as taking the filler and putting the stuff that's new at the bottom. Yeah. So you're not continually loading up new product on the top. And then I've had this happen to me. So this is how I know, because, I had 4 clinics at some point with 12 injectors across multiple rooms.
And I would, maybe injector would do that, but I find what often happens is it gets delegated to, I don't know, the receptionist who happens to meet the delivery guy, and they unpack the box. And of course they have no idea, because that's not what they're doing. And I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I'm pretty sure legally that product needs to be handled by a nurse or a doctor. Yeah. Shouldn't be given to someone who doesn't, understand it, honestly.
Or even just going through and just putting a sticker on boxes, like a bright orange or green sticker that will indicate you're in the last 6 months, or something like that. Just because it's easy when you get busy to sort of, and before you know it, you get to your cupboard day and like, oh shit, this stuff's about to go. Yeah. So I think that's something I'd recommend, is getting into a good stock control process. Going through your basic financials to know, how much is this product worth to you, as I guess the wholesale value, what's it worth, retail value, other things that you potentially could be doing with that money that are going to be benefit. Do you want to blow, 20 grand on all this filler that you're not going to get through for 6 months, or do you want to put that money towards another staff member or a marketing campaign, or whatever? So it's just about just being methodical and having a broad spectrum understanding of your business and all the sort of levers that you can pull. Yeah. Yeah. Does that answer your question, I guess?
I think you've answered my question. And we've gone off piste.
Yes, that's what we do. Again. That's what we do.
So we'll wrap this one up, guys. Bit of a different one.
Yeah.
Hopefully you enjoyed hearing us live.
Yes.
And putting people under slight pressure.
Yeah, that's good.
But all in a good way. Thank you to the guests who were on the panel with us.
Yeah.
We'll love to have you on the podcast again, all of you.
Yeah.
And what should we do next year? What should we plan for A24?
Well, I think Steven said I don't think he hadn't had any feedback yet. So I mean, hopefully
probably too early. He's probably freaking exhausted.
Yeah, but I mean, we'd love to be involved. I mean, I think that, you and I like the idea of having those real discussions, and I think that quite often you can come to these conferences and it feels very curated, and it's very sort of, because you've got limited time and so much going on. There's such a full agenda that you don't really get to deep dive into stuff. So I mean, it would be great for us to be able to have like a more detailed discussion with maybe
3 or 4 people.
Yeah, and be able to sort of go back and forth a bit more and sort of flesh these conversations out.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what kind of people want. They want more detail. They want to have a discussion reach its natural conclusion rather than being on a timer, which is fine because I understand that, that was the time we were given. But I think if I was to have a wish list, that would be one of them, was to have a little bit more time to explore some of these topics, because they're quite complicated and they're nuanced. And, I often walk into a conversation with you with one opinion and then you'll go, well, what about this? And then I'll go, oh, yeah, it's actually a good point. And, maybe I should think about it differently. So I think that's how we all learn is just by listening and fleshing these things out.
Yeah. Well, if any of you guys were in the audience and you thought, I wish they did this or that, shoot us a message on Instagram, Inside Aesthetics Podcast, and just tell us what your ideas are, or who would you like us to talk to, or write to your next conference organizer and demand that we're there. Yeah. give us a room for the whole conference. No, definitely wouldn't want to do that. All right. Well, thanks, buddy.
It was good. Thanks for the chat, and good to be on stage with you. And fun unpacking this discussion.
It was weird seeing you in a suit.
Well, I know, right?
Waistcoat and suit trousers.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen you dressed like that.
Well, there you go. Maybe it's a sign of things to come.
Yeah. All right, mate. See you
Have a good one. Bye.
For our latest news, follow us on Instagram at Inside Aesthetics Podcast. If you want to get in touch with myself or David, follow us on Instagram as well at Dr. Jake Sloan and David_Inside Aesthetics.
Join our IA Patreon platform for invaluable business and injectable education. Get access to our global community of like-minded professionals, live and interactive Zoom sessions, hints and tip videos, webinars, and more. Head over to www.insideaesthetics.com/Patreon for more information.